Hey guys, just wanted to show you a couple of other things regarding the mic stands that we'll be using this semester, and mainly the infield, kind of the overhead mic stands. So obviously we're not going to be using handhelds, at a close distance or anything like that. There are a couple different options, but this is probably the best suited option. One, because you'll be shooting by yourself, and two, you have the flexibility whether your interview subject is standing or sitting. So what you want to do is make sure that everything is set up ahead of time before they get there. And then once you have everything, and you may realize that something might be off or whatever it may be, have them step out of the shot and you can make adjustments accordingly. So I want to show you this stand here that we have. So essentially it's almost a tripod for your microphone. There are a couple different types of microphones they may give you for this. There may be like a shotgun mic. There may be, they may just give you a handheld. Again, the JetLab has a really good tutorial. It's under the modules for field reporting, how to kind of set up these mics, but I want to go a little more in depth for you guys. So first things first, we have this piece. We're going to want to, you can adjust it here. So the silver part, if you tighten or loosen, that will give you the ability to manipulate that. The other thing, that was really awkward. So this screw right here, if you undo it, all of a sudden you can extend it how you need. So we'll just extend it this way. Now the other thing, this thing's starting to go wild. Okay, there's a screw right here. If you loosen that, as you can see it start to go down, so this middle pole can go up a bit higher. Now the other thing about this, at the bottom there are 3 separate tripod legs. Have them click in, and then when you set it down, it will kind of feel uneven a little bit. But if you push it down pretty firm, then it will kind of go into place. You don't have to, yank it down or anything like that. But also, if you're kind of, if you give it a firm push, it'll help. So then we have, as this was already loose, so right here manipulates how tall you can make the tripod portion of this. So keep it at about eye level before we get everything going. Now I'm going to grab the XLR here, and what you want to do is have it go up this tripod, and then you wrap it around this top portion. And you want it to be not a ton of slack. You want a little give, obviously, when you start yanking kind of on the XLR cable. Sometimes things can get kinked and issues can happen, but you want it to be relatively, tight, not a ton of slack there. And then in this case, we were given a handheld microphone, so you can just pop it in like this. Some of them it might require sliding in, but for this one, you just pop in, and then just make sure it is connected, okay? All right, slack is good. And then what you can do, again, if you go to this portion right here and loosen it, you can bring it up above your subject. Now, a couple things to keep in mind about this. So when you're using this setup, you don't want it to be in the shot. So what you can do is, if they're seated, if they're standing, it's going to be, I don't know, foot and a half above where you want it. The other thing that you're going to want to do is make sure, and I'm going to bring this down so you can see it in the shot. The other thing is you want to tilt it towards where they're going to be speaking, okay? So, and then the other thing to keep in mind is, what side of the camera are you going to be standing on? If you're going to be standing on this side, then you want it how it's set up. If you're going to be on the other side where the viewfinder is, you may want to flip it around. But the thing is with these handheld mics, they may not catch everything around here, but it might be that it might be catching the audio directly where it's pointed. So obviously we need to bring this up a little bit. So I'm going to loosen this silver piece, bring it up, tighten that guy up a little bit, and then you can tilt it towards yourself. Now, if your initial shot where it's fully zoomed out it has it in the shot, always know that you can zoom and frame how you want to get like this out of the shot and that sort of thing. You can manipulate your angles a little bit, but the main thing is you want the microphone in front of your interview subject where you're still 6 feet away, and you want it pointed towards them. So the sound's coming out here, you want the microphone to be able to catch that. If it's just, straight down, for this example, we'll just bring it. So it's straight down, that means the mic is catching everything that's right here. That's in front of where we want it. And you don't want it to be just completely over top, your interview subject. So have it tilted that way and that sort of thing. Again, depending on what side you want to stand on, I would recommend your first couple interviews, you stand on the side that has the viewfinder so you can keep track of it really closely. So that means that the mic stand will probably be on, if you're the videographer, it'll be on your left, okay? Another thing, and we'll go over this a little bit more, but when you're shooting, you want to talk about, and I'm going to bring this up just so it kind of fits how we want it to look. The other thing is, with interviews, a lot of times what I will tell the interview subjects, especially when we're using rule of thirds, they're not supposed to be looking at the camera like I am right now because I'm interacting with you, is before they get going, you test the mic, you're behind the camera, you have your earbuds in so you can hear them, and that's another thing. If issues pop up and that sort of thing, you can hear it right away. That's the advantage of having earbuds with you. If you need to bring the microphone a little bit closer, you can. If you need to adjust it, however, if it might be, a loose connection, you can troubleshoot that really quickly once they step out and give you that 6 feet of distance. But a lot of times what I'll remind them is, camera's not even here, you can just look at me. So that way it's not, the interview subject just looking straight into your soul. It's, they're looking off camera. You can establish the rule of thirds, have them kind of shift over. Obviously there's going to be a better background than potentially this one. And you can also work on your depth of field, which we'll go over a little bit more. So when you're setting up your interview, you don't want to be 2 or 3 feet away from the camera. You actually want to be standing almost, in most cases, if you have a bigger tripod where the base is a little bit wider, you're standing on the inside of one of those legs. So that way that you can see the viewfinder easily, your earbuds are in, but more importantly, the person on camera, and especially when you're doing the rule of thirds, is still looking towards the direction of the camera, because you're just, if you're the videographer, you're just to the left of the camera lens. If you are a couple feet over, all of a sudden that's when you get kind of a strange, shoulder, you're getting more of the profile than you're getting the actual full face, where you can maintain the rule of thirds still, and still looking at the interviewer and that sort of thing. So that's why you want to stay close to the camera. You don't want, to be stepped away a couple feet from the camera. And the other thing is you might have to coach them a little bit on whether they're sitting or standing, how their shoulders are. If they're standing and kind of facing you but looking at the camera, or vice versa, like their shoulders are a little bit off, whatever. This is a distracting shot. Like, you want it to be natural. You want them to be facing you, just a little off center, looking at you and maintaining those rule of thirds so you have a nice balanced shot. But again, you can go through some of the framing to get rid of the microphone here, and make sure that the rule of thirds are there. Now, the other thing to keep in mind, when in doubt, you can always shoot it a little bit looser. You know, you can have a little more headroom than you need. Obviously, there's a ton of headroom here, but you can always zoom it in. If I'm too close and my head's cut off, there's nothing we can do about this. But if you have a little bit too much headroom, and I'm not saying, you know, have yourself go all the way back here, that's when, you know, your shot will get a little bit more manipulated. But if you need a little bit of, you know, a little bit of a safety net, give a little bit more headroom, give a little bit, shoot a touch wider, and then in post you can zoom it in just a little bit, and also affect where they're going. But again, you want to make sure that the rule of thirds are set up. Have a little bit of wiggle room if you need, but you can also then go ahead and zoom it in. I'm going to show you now an example of what it's like to square up an interview using this mic setup, to make sure you have depth of field, and kind of what that is. Again, depth of field, it helps kind of highlight the interview subject. It helps kind of blur this background a little bit. Very difficult to do while you're on camera, but behind the scenes, you can do it, and it really establishes your shot really well, so the focus is there. And just going over again some of the things that may come up as you're framing up an interview. Okay, so now we have our mic stand set up. We are all framed up. My lovely fiance is standing in as the interview subject. So you're going to get all of this set up before they get there to maintain social distancing. If you have to make an adjustment to the mic, maybe bring it lower, that sort of thing, you can have them step out, so you can still maintain that 6 feet of distance for you. So now I'm going to show you how to frame up the interview. Obviously, the mic is in our shot, and we don't want that. So just go ahead. You can zoom in a bit, and we want to maintain those rule of thirds. So I'm going to be standing on the viewfinder side. So you want to put them on the opposite side, so as they look at you, it maintains those rule of thirds, and the shot is balanced. They aren't looking, and it's the opposite way and unbalancing the shot. So we're just going to maintain those rule of thirds real quick. And actually, first what we'll do is we'll focus, and what you always do is you focus on the eyes. So you zoom in nice and close.
Hello, everyone.
Make sure that the focus is just about perfect, and then you can zoom it out. And then you go ahead and shoot those rule of thirds. Now, the way I have the shot set up right now is she is about 8 to 10 feet away from me, and you see there's plenty of distance behind you know, the backdrop. So you don't want to, if you have the space, you don't want to put someone right up against a wall, and that sort of thing. And you can see the background is now blurred. So that creates a depth of field. So you know what to look at. The subject is what you are looking at. And then that way, it's just a much sharper shot that way. What you're going to do now, make sure you're obviously recording. Choose a side. Obviously, the way I set it up is that Sarah is hitting those rule of thirds. I can even bring it over just a touch more. But she's going to be looking at me. So before every interview, I tell them, don't even worry about the camera. You can just look at me. I'm obviously standing very close to the camera. We went over that before, so you don't see the profile of their face. You see their full face. But as you're asking questions, they're looking at you, and you can get that, again, that rule of thirds, that nice balance of the shot. They don't have to look directly into the lens. A lot of times that can kind of be like offsetting for the interviews, the people watching it, and that sort of thing. And of course, I have my headphones in. I'm off camera. Your earbuds are in, so you can hear them coming through. If you have your internal mic on, you can hear that as well. So then usually what I just do is, again, remind them, don't need to worry about the camera. You can just look at me, and then give a mic test. So if you could, Sarah, if you could count to 10 for us.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
All right, so you can see that the meters are going on channel 1. That's how we have it plugged in. If you can hear it through the earbuds, all is good. If not, there might be a little bit of an issue, so go ahead and test that. But again, the mic is pointed directly at your interview subject, because that handheld mic, it's not an omnidirectional. It's not going to pick up everything around it. It's a very focused area that you're going to be getting that audio coming through. So make sure that it's pointed there. It is above them and out of the shot. And then you have your depth of field, your rule of thirds, and then you're ready to go. Okay, guys, hope this was helpful. Just wanted to show you 3 more things throughout the process that you want to be aware of and want to just fine-tune, just little mistakes that can happen that you want to try to avoid. So number 1, let's look at Sarah's shot right now. She's looking above me, so this is while I'm getting the camera set up. It is slightly above her, but what you want to do when you're doing an interview is make sure you're on the same level as your interview subject. So if they're sitting down, you should grab a chair as well. Sit down, kneel. You don't want them necessarily looking up, having to look down, that sort of thing. So if they're standing, you're standing. Obviously, a height difference you can't really necessarily do too much about, but if they're seated, you should be seated as well. The other thing, as we check this out, so as I'm zooming, you can see the color change happen. So we had not white balanced yet, and my guess is that it had the auto white balance had turned on there. As you can see, it go much more blue, and my fiance is going to hate that I'm doing the zoom in on her again, but then it kind of goes back to orange. So once they're seated, if it's like a sit down interview and you have the time, you can have them hold up a white piece of paper and white balance, right there with that setup. Obviously, if you're lighting an interview, the white balance is kind of the last thing you do in your setup to make sure that it's as close to the interview setup as you can. If you have time to do it before without them there, try to do that. But if you are kind of comfortable, with that interview subject, like I said, with press conferences, a lot of times a photog before will go up and test the mic. Will put up a white balance as well, a white piece of paper, and you can white balance off of that. So that's just another thing to keep in mind. So make sure that you have that white balance established. And again, if you're comfortable with this interview subject, you've talked to them a couple of times before, you could even ask them potentially to do that if you're kind of one-man banding it. And then finally, just wanted to show you the position of the mic. Obviously, so this was kind of set up more for standing. I just wanted to ensure and kind of quadruple check with you guys that, if the audio isn't sounding great, make sure they step out and you make an adjustment. Frankly, probably the mic should be closer to right here, a little bit closer. That's definitely pushing how far away the mic should be from your interview subject. We didn't really go through adjustments. I just wanted to make sure you guys kind of knew the process. But as I was watching it through, I wanted to make sure that you guys knew. Definitely have that microphone much closer on that. So just 3 more things. Again, hope this helped. And as always, let me know if you have any questions.